All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 10th, I think we're on, of the meeting of the core devs biweekly implementers. Today we'll be going through kind of our usual agenda. We'll go through updates from everyone, and there's a few points of discussion. There are some FIPs to discuss, and we'll also start talking about how we're going to be doing network upgrades in the future, because so far that's kind of been easier to do because Lotus has been the only implementation, but now we're going to have 2, 3, 4 implementations that all kind of need to be in lockstep, which is we need to start preparing for. So we'll kind of have a preliminary discussion for that. Yeah, maybe let's kick it off with updates from, let's hear from Venus first.
Hello everyone. Okay, we just back from the holiday, but I think the team just take about 1 week off, and we come back to work on this project currently. We had a very good progress on Velas. Okay, and at first, Velas had upgraded to Stake Actor version 3, and we run the new code in the calibration network, and it passed the test. And I think we'll have another version to upgrade with the Lotus together for the network version 10. So we should have another release tomorrow. I think this is the first very important thing we have done in the last few days. And another thing is that we start to work on the distributed mining pool support. By doing this, we are we'll separate the modules to have many modules work together instead of to have a very big program. For example, we have separated Velas miner and Velas Saner, and we also have a remote wallet, and next we will have Messenger to have the message pool management and the message selection. So we're working on that. Currently, we have done the remote wallet implementation, which have better security feature than the current one we can get from Lotus. For this, we had completed the test in the test network. It would mean that we have the miner, Saner, and wallet together. We combine them together to have the integration test. That is our very first step for the distributed mining pool support. Okay. I think that's all. For the Velas.
No, that's fantastic. That does mean that the upcoming V10 upgrade will be our first upgrade that has multiple implementations passing over the epoch together, because Venus will be there with us. Well, at least Venus will be there with us, which is great. Molly has a quick question in chat. Does the web wallet support multisigs?
I'm sorry. Okay. Here. Okay, I think we have this. Okay. I mean that we will have the test. We will have the release. We'll have the release tomorrow, and currently we have 1 Velas node in the mainnet. So we'll upgrade this node within this week, and we'll have a release in case we have some other Velas node in the network, so that they could upgrade their system before the network version 10 takes effect.
Cool. And Molly was just asking about the wallet and whether it supports multisigs. As an example, changing the number of multisig signers. Does it have support for that kind of thing?
Yeah, for context, this is just something, there was a thread about it for the Glyph wallet, which doesn't support multisigs with more than one signer. And so this is just something that I know there's been a couple of requests for, and it seems like potentially your guys' web wallet would be a way that people could handle multisigs with multiple signers. But I was curious if that's the case.
I'm sorry. Yeah, this is questions for me, and I don't think we're supporting the Glyph web wallet, but we have a mobile application which supports the wallet, and we limit file wallet. We currently do not support the multisigs, but we will do that after the upgrade. So.
Gotcha, cool. So yes, support, but not until after the upgrade. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, good work. Let's hear from Forrest.
Hey, so our primary, I guess, focus has been upgrading to network version 10. And so we're almost done updating actors. I think we just finished the minor actor and we have one more left. So we're almost there on the actors front. And then next week, we're planning to do the changes to the VM and runtime and also do the state migration. We've already implemented the framework for doing state migrations, but now just do the actual state migration for network version 10. In addition to that, we are updating our RPC interface. So we're adding HTTP support and working towards feature parity with Lotus. We know that that's perhaps like a thing that's changing, but for now, we are working towards at least some level of compatibility with Lotus and figuring out how we can either, I guess, like keep that in the future so it's easy for people to switch between, Forest and Lotus, or with some sort of integration testing or something like that. Otherwise, we're working towards an audit, and so we're figuring out the exact date, but it's looking like it's going to start in a few weeks. But prior to that, we'd like to productionize Forest a bit more. So we're working on some improvements to our message pool, and then also some improvements to syncing after that. And outside of that, we had a great chat with Megan last week. And so we're working now on our vision for how we differentiate Forest going forward. I mean, up until this point, we've been very focused on just becoming interoperable, but now that we are pretty much there, it's important to think about how we see Forest improving itself or serving a specific subset of users going forward. And so we'll share what we've been working on in terms of our vision with the foundation and with the Lotus team for feedback in the next couple of days. And otherwise, I also had a chat with Jennifer about like building community for Forest. We'll be adding updates to the new Filecoin community page that's on GitHub. But yeah, that's about it for us. Any questions?
Nice. So it's nice to hear work priorities shifting from just build a thing to who's going to be using this, how are we going to be building the community around it. That's great. Quick question: Are you have a node running on mainnet right now, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you hoping to have migration and V3 actors done by Wednesday and roll over the V10 upgrade epoch with us?
I mean, ideally, so I mean, I've been upgrading all the actors for the past week and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the minor actor was the big change, and most of the other actors haven't changed that much, I would say. A lot of it is like some of the exit code handling has changed a little bit for most of the actors. So I mean, I anticipate probably getting the migrations done before then, but it's like one of those things where it's like, if we don't even have basic conformance tests, it's kind of hard to know if we're going to crash like right at the fork epoch or not. So, I mean, I'm obviously going to keep the node running, and hopefully hopefully we don't, we don't blow up in midair. But I'm like semi-optimistic that it should work. I'm writing the minor code with like very, very, very like open eyes, making sure all the exit codes are right, because That I feel like that's probably like the hardest part with respect to like looking at spec actors code, because it's like you sometimes like forget and don't wrap an error and throw an error instead, and then like your exit codes are off, and even though your state roots are right. So yeah. But yeah, I actually have one question with respect to the network upgrades v10. From my understanding, I mean, I understand everything that's like changed in spec actors for network version 10. So I mean, for that, you just have to upgrade the actors, get the network, get the state migration stuff going. But is there anything happening on the Lotus side with respect to the interpreter and all that over there?
Yeah, there's one consensus critical change in Lotus that comes to mind, which is that we're deleting the actor corresponding to the 0 BLS signature. This is kind of an actor that never should have been created in the first place because it's not secure, like anyone can spend from it. It's not really a security threat, it's just this shouldn't be here. So we're deleting that actor, just burning any funds that happen to be in it. I think that's the only thing that changes outside of actors and like the Hampton stuff. Yeah, pretty sure we don't change anything at the VM level yeah, pretty sure that's it.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, maybe I'll message you guys a little bit later just to confirm and see like how you guys and where you guys are handling that, because yeah, I remember we talked about the 0 address a while ago. Just forgot about it, I guess.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, that's also a good flag though, that from this point on we should really start keeping a list of like every consensus critical change, even if it's small. Like the bigger ones obviously goes with the FIT process, so they're documented there. But even like kind of minor bug fixes and so on, we should probably maintain like a nice little list somewhere for the implementers here, anyone else who wants to implement Filecoin and so on. I'll make a quick note of that. Yeah, great work. Cool, let's hear from Foodfarm.
Hi everyone, thank you, Ayush. So we had done significant progress in terms of testing our solution functional way. So we had quite a big job fixing bugs and issues we have faced during the testing of node functionality and synchronization. So now Node is up and running on the mainnet. It syncs successfully and it's in a catch-up state. So it's kind of instability testing mode now. We will see what will happen in the next week or two, if it will be stable or not. In parallel, we have prepared for the reliability / stability / load / stress testing, and we are going to execute it in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So this is going to be quite an extensive one. We are going to test how Node will work under different kind of environments, under the different load, and we are going to crash it and smash it and see what will happen. So this is something we are currently working on. Well, in terms of development, nothing really major is happening right now, as we are basically stabilizing our own solution. Actors v2 are being slowly upgraded. So we, as I mentioned on a previous meeting, we had a small refactor. Well, it turned out to be not really a small one, but quite a big refactoring. So we can introduce smoother transfer to actors v3 later on CVP actors. So this is something we are currently finalizing. So the only two, I think, yeah, currently there are only 2 actors left, which are storage miner and market actors needed to be refactored. Not sure. Well, not so much progress was done since the last update, as we had a different focus. And well, for the next 2 weeks, we are going to focus on reliability testing and see what will happen with the node. And in parallel, we are working on to introduce a quality gate for all the code we have produced so far, and basically migrate all the code through this quality gate and see whether it's in a good enough state, we need some improvements or not. So we are hoping to have a good quality solution. So we are making sure everything is intact. Yep, that's it from my side. I think we have not sure who has raised the question regarding the conformance test for the future changes, breaking changes. Do you want to touch it right now, or will we have time for it later?
Yeah, we can talk about that right now. Yeah, so I kind of spoke with Rahul, and kind of internally we're trying to figure out what to do with that first. We definitely committed to creating conformance test vectors for V3. They're probably not going to be ready in time for the actual upgrade epoch, much as we'd like that. Yeah, so first, so that's kind of like the first point. The second point is that conformance vector should probably kind of become like a shared component between like all of us here, essentially, as we for future network upgrades. So we can kind of talk about but distributing the work around creating those tests, adding new tests, and so on across the group here. Obviously, it's going to be easiest for anyone in Go-based environments, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. I'm hoping to have test vectors out sometime next week, but we'll see.
Thanks, great. So, and for the future breaking changes, are we going to introduce test vectors upfront, or we will have to basically the question is, how are we confirming that we are in a good enough state and we will not our nodes will not stale in the mainnet? So do we have some kind of process for that?
Not yet. The process should probably be like, I think the test vector suites probably need to get a lot more comprehensive now that again there's the kind of 4 implementations moving across. So I think yeah, slowing down a bit. I don't know about creating them up front, but certainly writing, getting far more vectors and then spending more time with them, and maybe again like splitting up the tests being written between different teams is probably the way to go. I'm not sure what everyone else thinks.
What about the option to run the upgrade on a separate net first and run it for a while and see how it goes, and then migrate to mainnet?
Yeah, we should basically always be doing that. And we've kind of always been doing that, putting it on a test network first. Whether that should just be the calibration test network or whatever our primary test network is that we all go across, or something smaller first that's kind of just for the implementations, we can see. But we'll certainly be going over doing the upgrade on some test network first, network or networks first.
So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in particular, it'd be nice to do up, kind of have more, I guess, larger intervals between hard forks that are not, security critical hard forks. And that way we can spin up, first kind of an interop net and then upgrade calibration net. And then, I mean, because ideally we would want to do an upgrade on a network that has people actually using it. Because obviously conformance vectors won't cover everything, and that's something we've seen already. It's we could be running a node for 2 weeks until we find one small receipt mismatch, and it's god damn it. Yeah, so yeah, I think a longer cadence and a more just long-term testing is going to be a good thing. But yeah, I guess the first step is getting the conformance vectors up first before we kind of plan the whole hard forking process. Yeah,
it's interesting. I kind of half agree in terms of network upgrade cadence, where I think with network upgrades there's a pain there, or there's work to be done across the community, the mining community in particular, that's pretty much always the same no matter what's actually in the upgrade, where they have to update all of their infrastructure, do any testing that they do, and prepare for this big epoch. But within the actual implementations, not all network upgrades are the same, right? Like this one that we have, if you're introducing a new version of actors, that kind of thing, if you is kind of actually a big upgrade and requires a different degree of testing and therefore potentially a longer test window and so on, than if we were to have smaller network upgrades that kind of do less along the way. I'm not saying that we should aim to do that, but it's kind of worth keeping that distinction in our heads and not having a one-size-fits-all approach, I guess, saying like we always want every upgrade to sit on, a test network for 2 weeks or have this set of suites or test suites or something like that, because sometimes we will have upgrades that change 2 lines of code, and we're pretty sure we know what the change is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, definitely there's times where it's just like, this can't break. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's good to have a process, but also just still be flexible with it as well. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. And yeah.
Yeah, agreed. But it is good to certainly flag that like test vectors are kind of a priority for everyone here, clearly. So we'll put more importance on that. Cool. Yeah, Lotus update. What have we been doing? Yeah, for the most part, so we finally put out our 1.5.0 release, which will be introducing Network Upgrade 10. This release was kind of ready back at the start of the month, but we wanted to test it a bit more, and then a large chunk of East Asia went on holidays. So we got a lot more time to test it, so we're feeling really good about it. Yeah, introduces V3 actors. The upgrade epoch is for next Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where in the world you are. So that's March 3rd, I think. Yeah, so that's running on the calibration test network right now. We also run it on some kind of like internal test networks first. So anyone who wants to try it out, obviously Venus already has a note on there. Yeah, anyone else who wants to see if you're syncing well with V3, calibration is a test network for you. Yeah, that's kind of been the big chunk of our work. The Specs Actors team has started looking into like the preliminaries of what V4 actors will look like, but it's still very much early days, obviously, for them. The big part of that work is one of the FIPs we're going to be talking about, which is in Proof's world. Yeah, anything else come to mind from the Lotus or Actors folks here in terms of updates? Okay, cool.
I have one question actually, with respect to Calibration Net. Like I know Calibration Net was borked for quite a bit. So I was just wondering if this new Calibration Net is like a new network or if it's building off of the old one.
No, it is a brand new. It is a brand new network. It's about about a week old by this point, but it didn't have like the most interesting state.
Cool. Yeah, just wondering. Yeah. Yeah, it might be good to test on that then, because I thought it might have been built off like the old one, and I would have had to probably ask for a snapshot or something.
No, you should be able to sync it fairly quickly. A couple of other notes on it. We're not having 512 megabyte sectors on it because that was messing with some of the crypto econ params and the pledge collateral calculations and so on. So it's only 32 and 64 gigabyte sectors, which is unfortunate if you're trying to mine. And kind of the second note is, we certainly intend for this to be a long-lived test network, but like we feel like we haven't hit the holy grail of test networks yet, because there are a couple of other mostly crypto econ type params that we want to get perfect. So the goal is to kind of keep this network alive for a while, learn from it, and then kind of based on those learnings, create our test net that basically stays alive forever unless something goes horribly wrong. But yeah, calibration is like the public test network for, and it's a pretty good resource. And we threw the faucet behind like 10 layers of "Are you a real human being?" guard, so that people don't drain the faucet, and then you have messages in the Slack being like, "Hey, can someone please give me fake Filecoin money on the test network?" Cool. Any other questions? Okay, maybe let's jump into a discussion of FIP 13 first, because I know there's folks here who want to talk about that, and then we'll talk about getting more future network upgrades such time. Nicola, do you want to take the lead on that? Wyatt, I don't know who wants to.
So, if I don't know if Wyatt is around, but yeah, he is. So let me just give a high-level review. FIP 13 is the one that introduces proof commit sector aggregates. And the goal here is that instead of committing a single sector with a proof commit, you commit multiple sectors with these aggregates. And the property here is that if we just think, let's forget about proofs for a second. If we just think about gas, we pay a large overhead cost for in operation just by loading state and doing other state operations, that if they were to be batched, we would just save this cost. The cost of operation for one sector or for 100 sectors, in theory, should be as close as possible to be the same. So the goal here is shave all possible initial costs by only paying the initial cost once for multiple sector. That's the main goal here. Now the reason why we didn't do this before is because there is a large technical challenge, and it's this proof commit aggregate doesn't just aggregate state transitions, state operations, but it also aggregates proofs. And this has been what we've been working on for the past maybe 3 to 4 months, is coming up with a proof scheme where we can have the size of a single proof. Sorry, have the size of 8,000 proofs, for example, to be as much much smaller than 8,000 independent proofs. And so we have our own initial benchmarks that for overall gas costs, if you aggregate 51 proofs, you already are 2x better in terms of gas. So if you were to send 50 proofs one by one, or 50 proofs with aggregation, you will pay half of the gas by sending 50 proofs together. Now, half of the gas is not that interesting, but numbers start to get very interesting. If you were to aggregate, for example, 800 proofs, then you would end up paying 20x less gas. And so when I mean per proof that you would be sending. So yeah, overall is a saving of 20x. So we believe that this is gonna, this week we are going to do initial test. Wyatt is working on this. There are some challenges. It may be that we cannot realize the full 20x speed up, but it could be that we realize something close to that. And the goal here is to have in the next week or so some initial numbers of how much gas saving we have for aggregating 50, 100, 800 plus proofs. And the goal is that we want also small miners to take advantage of this. And so we may be, and it takes a while for a small miner to generate 50 sectors. And maybe what we can do, we can increase the proof commit submission time. So we increase the window for submitting proof commits, and so that they have enough time to generate 50 proofs, and then they aggregate and they end up paying overall less gas. This will probably benefit large miners more than small miners. This is almost for sure. But if the more large miners use less gas, the more gas will overall go down. So it will benefit everybody. And I may be selling a dream now, hopefully not, but if we have a 20x saving in proof commit gas cost, then the chain is close to empty. And so maybe even if we don't realize the 20x, and we realize that 5x is already a huge win for gas costs. And because now over 1/3 of gas cost unspent in proof commit, and now this proof commit cost will reduce. And we have similar gains, but this will be in a future upgrade for pre-commit. But pre-commit is simple because it doesn't require proofs. Proof commit was the major complicated item.
That's really cool. I have a question for that. So, I mean, I don't really understand how, aggregating like these proofs work, obviously. So when you're aggregating proofs together, like, does the size of the proof increase linearly, or does it increase at all, or is it kind of aggregated in a way where they're like added together instead?
Good question. So we have a presentation that is going to be out soon. It's an internal presentation that describes the theory of this. And we have a paper that describes this in more detail. But the idea here is that you generate 50 proofs as of today, 50 proof commit proofs, so 10 partition each, and so it's 500 snarks in total. And what you do, you run some special operation on these 50 proofs, which will create a new proof. And this new proof is much small. It's not linear in the size. It's logarithmic in the size. So this means that the difference in the final proof size, when we aggregate 50 or 8,000 proofs, it's closer than it's very close. Then constants work out really nice, and so in practice, verification time is faster because you don't verify linearly in the number of proofs, and the proof size is smaller because you verify the size of the proof is smaller. I am sending here a notebook for those that want to dive into a little bit of preliminary numbers. This is all public in all of this work is public in the FIP repo, and except from the doc that we are compiling with the new proof. And you can follow in the FIP discussion. You can see Zen work and Nemo's work on proofs. So you could already like test these proofs and play with this. And in this link I'm sending you, there is the aggregate gas total, which says what is the total gas spent, which includes both the size of the proofs and the verification time. This is just for proof verification. What we're working with Wyatt is also state operations that, if batched, would be like there would be a massive saving there.
Yeah, I have a quick question similar to the one that Eric had, which, like as you mentioned, like this is like a bit of an obvious thing to do, and we would have liked to do it earlier, but aggregating the proofs was the challenge, so that it's not just a linear, like you're just sending 8,000 proofs in one message. Was
Right.
there like a single aha breakthrough that made that possible, or anything?
Right. So there was a paper that was published in 2019, so a while ago. They uses a trick that we were aware of, but we decided not to use because before we were trying to understand. We have 10 proofs. One proof commit is 10 snarks, and we were trying to find ways to reduce these 10 snarks. We were trying to come up with new solutions for reducing proof size for these 10 snarks. We didn't want to have 10 snarks. We wanted to have one, and this technique didn't work for 10 proofs. Only works for 50 proofs plus. So we trashed this. We said this line of work, it doesn't work. And then we had a chat with several people. We were planning to solve this very problem with Halo. And then while talking with several people, we went back to the drawing board and we said, oh, we could use this not to aggregate 10 proofs, but to aggregate large amount of proofs. This wasn't a problem before launch. We didn't know that proof commits would have been so widely popular. And I mean, maybe some people did, but in the research team wasn't thinking thought that this was a problem, but not an imminent problem. So it's fantastic that we found a tool which we were aware of. This one thing that is important, we couldn't just use the tool as it was. That's a set of intuitions. This work produced by Mari Meller, Benedict Poons, and other, he does 70% of the work, but it couldn't be used directly into Filecoin. And so we had to spend the past 3 to 4 months adapting it for Filecoin. And it's not just working for Filecoin. This is a win for Snark space in general, for the blockchain community in general, because a lot of people use the proofs that we use, which is, we call them Snark Groth 16. And now whoever has Groth 16 proofs can use the same libraries to aggregate proofs. And we believe that other groups will take advantage of this. And the more groups, the faster and smaller these proofs will be. So good question. We wished we saw that earlier.
Very nice, very nice. That's exciting.
One more question about this. the aggregated proof for one miner, and I think it will very benefit the big miners. So I have another question is that could we have one controller one controller an account to aggregate multiple miners proof commit and together in one method.
This is a very good question, and we believe it's going to be the next step for this. So we first needed to come up with a way to aggregate proofs, and once we can aggregate proofs, we could aggregate across miner. Now the way we are approaching this is the following: is step one is drastically reduce gas used in the network, and how do we do this? Is by just by having per miner aggregation already solves large part of the problem. So for example, we could in theory go from 3 million proofs per day to maybe 100,000 proofs per day. And doing operations across miner is the next step to go from 100,000 proofs to maybe 10 proofs per day. And so it's just a matter of what was faster for us to ship. And because one thing is building software that aggregates per miner. So miner already has software to do proofs and aggregation. There is an extra protocol that we will need to create, which is coordination for across miners. And there will be some incentives there and slashing conditions. There is extra work that would delay of a few months. And we want to get this out as soon as possible. But it is the next step to do that. And I believe that there will be an economy of aggregator nodes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that will be very great. Yes, because that we're doing the distributed mining pool support. Which will support multiple miners. With one owner or one worker to serve other miners. That will be very cool if we can do that. Another question is in one aggregated proof basis, if one of the proof failed, will all the proof all the sectors proof will fail, or we can distinguish that to have others success and only one of them fail.
So when you aggregate a proof, you have a vector of proofs, you have a set of proofs, and you will not be able to generate a proof commit aggregate message if one of those proofs is incorrect. So in other words, you wouldn't be able to generate the message in first place because you wouldn't be able to generate the proof. So once you generate the proof, then given some set of proofs, you can generate the proof if all of them are valid. And so there's no way that the proof verification can fail. There are some edge cases that could happen. So for example, you have already proof committed these sectors. And now it's a question whether, if one of those sectors were already proof committed, and we submit a proof commit aggregate, what happens then? I think our stance is that you will fail the entire submission, and you will have to resubmit. But I don't think miners will ever run into that. I mean, this is something that it's up for. If we want to change, this is the best time to brainstorm in the FAP process. This is a good point. We can bring it up and discuss async.
Yeah, that sounds like something we should definitely get folks to weigh in on in the FEP itself.
Yeah, in general, what we've been doing, we've been working on the theory to make this work, but the protocol change is up to the community to choose what's the best way for moving forward and what is the best set of edge cases and how to handle them.
Cool. Yeah, this is great work. And like it genuinely would like transform the Filecoin network, which is amazing. Hopefully. Any other questions? All right. Yeah. So this is certainly not one of those clips that's gonna like that we can quickly talk about. So you know, I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion, questions, kind of design choices that we'll have to make over the days and weeks. But for now, you know, we've talked about it. We're aware of it. Think about it some more. Raise questions on the FIP as they come up. But yeah, this is great work. Thanks, Nicola. Cool. Sorry, jumping back to the agenda, I just realized that I totally skipped the folks from the Filecoin Foundation. Was there an update that either of you wanted to provide? I really apologize for that.
Yeah, we actually don't have any updates, but we're so thrilled to hear everything. We will say that we do have a regular update that we share with our board and a few folks in our ecosystem. So if there are any top lines that you guys would like to amplify, we're happy to, please feel free to pass that along and we'll make sure it gets shared with our community. So.
Very nice, thank you. Yeah, I think we're going to have some exciting announcements in the weeks ahead. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. Cool.
I guess the other quick update is we are actually revamping our website. We're trying to build out actually a developer-specific portal. So if anyone is interested in providing insights on how we can really create a great experience for any developer entering the Filecoin ecosystem, just to learn about you know, some of our existing work, would love to set up separate one-on-ones, and we can brainstorm what's useful, what's not, and especially relevant to this. So.
Got it.
Just to jump in with one other thing, we are also hiring, and so we'll put the jobs that we're hiring for in the chat. But if anyone has people that they want to recommend for, you know, growing out the Filecoin ecosystem.
And we have the jobs here, so I just shared it in our chat.
Perfect.
Please recommend great folks, and please flag them for both Megan and I. We'll get them through a separate recruiting pipeline.
Perfect. What's the best way to go if someone here wanted to reach out to either of you? What's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so we actually have a alias that reaches everyone on our foundation. So it's probably, you know, if it's a broader ask, it's easier to just go to team@file.org. For Megan and I, it's just our first name @file.org. So.
One other thing that sorry, it's on a very different tangent. One other thing that I wanted to mention in the 150 update that I forgot. As you know, this implements FIP 10, which is accepting optimistic window posts. So as part of that, we needed a dispute process to dispute bad window posts that shouldn't have been accepted. So we built that into Lotus. And so there's like a lightweight process that kind of like tries to validate every single post, and if it fails, it then sends a dispute message. So just something for the implementers to keep in mind. You might want to build one of those for each of your implementations as well. There's a lot of scope for improvement too. So yeah, it's something to be aware of. It's not a core part of any implementation of the Filecoin protocol, but you also kind of might as well, because it's pretty easy to do. Cool. All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was yeah, how we want to do network upgrades in the future, and kind of like this, I mostly just want to hear what people think. So I was going to say that this is our last upgrade that we do is just the Lotus team, but that's not even true, because we have other implementations who'll be crossing across the upgrade epoch with us on mainnet, which is fantastic. So we definitely need to kind of like change the way we like plan these things and so on. So this is probably the forum in which we'll be discussing a lot of these things, as well as async in the Phil Implementers channel, about, you know, when we want to like start planning for the next upgrade, what we'd want to get into it, what FIPs are landing, and so on. Yeah, so what do people think? What are concerns that people have? What do you think the process should be? I want to get opinions here.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the pain points have kind of been touched upon already, primarily with respect to testing and change logs and that kind of stuff. It kind of feels like a lot of the big things are obviously, communicated in FIPS, but I feel like a lot of like smaller things aren't really documented well until you just like jump into the code and it's like, oh shoot, it's like, so they don't throw the error here anymore, but they wrap it and downcast it instead or something like that. So I feel like just like details like that are quite nice, and because like the way, just to give some context, the way that I've been updating our actors implementation, for example, is I basically first of all, I look at the I go into GitHub and I do like a tag diff between like v3 point whatever and 234. And then I look at the files that have changed a lot, and I kind of prioritize based on which actors have changed a lot and which ones haven't. And then I just fire up VS Code and I do a diff on basically every file and go line by line and see like all the changes. And that's it's quite a tedious process, which is, it makes sense. It's like, it's a very core part that changes, and that's cool. But yeah, it'd be nice to have like a little bit more of things that are like documented with respect to things that have changed. You like, especially like the small stuff is like, that's the stuff that's like, that's the stuff where you're gonna fork when you're on mainnet. And so things like that would be ideal. And just going back to the release cadence thing, it would just be nice to have like a longer heads up, I guess. So we can all kind of agree upon like a launch epoch. Obviously, like that wasn't super important for V3 because at the time that all this stuff was implemented, like I don't think any other implementations are really in a position to be on mainnet yet. But yeah, as that changes, it'd be nice to have more kind of like a broader consensus on upgrade epochs and stuff like that. Yeah.
I want to also kind of expand on Eric's point. Hey, I'm Hunter. By the way, I joined the call a little late, so but I just want to introduce myself. I joined the Forest team at ChainSafe, and one thing we've been discussing is instrumenting the code base so that we can get better insight into things that might be edge cases or things that might behave a little differently. I think one fear I might have is an edge case to slip by unnoticed or whatever. And I know, like they're obviously probably not going to be the like, it's going to be very noticeable, I'm sure, but there's always just some worries that, are we able to see everything work the same? And obviously, the consensus protocol is going to be what determines, the reference implementation is going to be what determines, the consensus in practice. But I think, just having better insight and kind of notification and understanding, throughout this kind of rollout process is going to be important.
Yeah, agreed. I'm curious, what kind of instrumentation would you be thinking of to catch those kinds of edge cases?
Well, so the at least Forest, we generate a lot of log output, and it's not always clear, what's important, what's not. There are definitely, tracing frameworks and things to investigate to, see how things are working. Can we get a dashboard, Grafana? I used to work at Influx Data, so I'm a little partial to that, but Prometheus is also good for time series database and all sorts of things. I kind of wonder if, anybody else has some experience with instrumentation of blockchain projects and maybe have some feedback on approaches in that regard. If not, that's cool.
I can elaborate a little bit more on this. We actually have some experience, as we have running a couple of other networks. Well, by we I mean Saramitsu, and I think we can touch it with you in private messages. So yeah, basically approaches you have mentioned with Grafana and well, other monitoring tools are quite good. Well, at least from our experience. So this is something we are using for our different solutions, and this is something we are planning to use for the Fullhorn also.
Fantastic. And Maxim, where do you work? Just to be clear.
At Sramitsu.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like an interesting thread to maybe have in Phil implementers or something. I'm sure other people will weigh in or be interested in the conversation.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Yep. Just my opinion on the question you've asked, Kayush. I'm actually quite agree with Eric. This is the process he has described on how it tracking changes from version to version are pretty much the same as for the chain safe guys. So we are going through all the changes that were introduced into Lotus. This is, I think, something that is inevitable if you want to have interoperability, but maybe it may change the format. So if you will have a calibration net or test net running for some time, and we will have to say that, okay, if you will have a version switch and every version is running on the calibration net for example, a week, and we have a suite of test cases that we want to run on this calibration net, and this would be our quality gate to proceed with the rollout to the mainnet. I think it will be a good enough solution, at least to start from.
Yeah, and I mean, I have no idea how the Ethereum folks do it, but I think it'd be a great idea to, chat with the people who do the testing and the hard fork coordination on like ETH1 and ETH2. I know ETH2 is going through their first hard fork right now, or in the process of, planning out their first hard fork. So I think it'd be a very valuable conversation to have with some folks there. I'm not entirely sure exactly who, but yeah. They obviously Ethereum's been around for so long, and they have a general purpose like VM and everything. So I'm assuming upgrading and all that stuff for them shouldn't really be that easy. So they might have some good insights.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic idea. Like we're not the first person to run into this problem, and won't be the first team to solve it. That's a great suggestion.
Sounds like your cat also agrees.
She always wants to let her opinion known. Okay, cool. So quick note that I have, thanks for all the feedback. Like I said, this is just like an information gathering exercise, and we'll kind of iterate on it and get a proper process. Quick note that I kept was, the FIPS do a good job of keeping the big changes in place. Changelog of all of the smaller changes in actors code would be very helpful, and maybe like flagging little things in the Films Butters channel as well. Slow down the release cadence a bit, agree on a launch epoch together, which we'll definitely be doing. Run upgrades for at least a week on test networks and have a suite of test cases that we plan on actually exercising on the network. And yeah, maybe chat with the Ethereum folks, figure out kind of what they do. One thing I'll add is that like we are eager to like not have this be like a one-man show or like a one Lotus show. So whatever we have to do, including things like kind of slowing down our process, always keeping security at top of mind, we are more than happy to do, because a lot of work has gone into all these implementations. Also, we're eager for everyone to join for the good of the network itself. So we'll take everything that's being said into account for sure. Cool. Molly flagged a question in chat. Does anyone want to discuss FIPS issue 56, which is this proposal on the extension of the V1 proof sector lifecycle? I'm not sure how much context everyone here has into this, but it's probably worth discussing. So maybe a little bit of background here is we launched Filecoin, we launched the network with V1 proofs, and found a somewhat minor to serious vulnerability, depending on who you ask and what their priorities are, in V1 proofs. So back in November last year, I think this was the third network upgrade, if I remember correctly, post liftoff network upgrade, we essentially bumped the proofs version. So introduced a fixed version that we called 1.1. disallowed adding any new sectors with the old vulnerable version. And it was like all new pre and proof commits have to be with the new secure 1.1 version type. And like all of that was fine. And the network upgrade was successful. The other thing we did was we disallowed extending the sectors that were sealed with the vulnerable proof type, because we were like, we don't want these sectors to, given that they're vulnerable, we don't want them to live on the network for any longer than they need to. So that's kind of the status quo, and that's what's been running on the network since back in November. Understandably, those miners who cannot extend their V1 sectors are unhappy and affected by this. I think, Stephen, you're one of them, or a group is one of them. So folks want to ask if they can extend those V1 sectors, and honestly, like it's a tough decision. So I'm curious to hear what people think.
Yeah, there is one thing. Okay, yeah, there's one thing about the background I want to mention here is because yeah, in the miner community, and there are actually lots of discussing about this. Yeah, it's understandable that many big miners want to have this extension capacity. For V1 is because they had started this work before the mainnet launch, and they have perhaps, I think there are 200 PIB, yeah, maybe more. I'm not so sure because I didn't dig into the data and for the details. But I can have that perhaps next week and to check the chain about that. Okay, and it is also understandable that because there are some security issue or something about fair or something about so. After thinking about this, I have another approach. Perhaps could be a trade-off. So could we consider to allow the V1 V1 sectors to have the longest expiration to 540 days only, instead of to extend much longer. And only 1.5 years. It will be much fair for the miners, because some miners have these sectors have the lifetime to 1.5 years, but and some others only have half-year lifetime for those sectors. So if there's a security issue, it will be actually affect on all of this, and instead of partial about this. And we also can protect this for example, after 1.5 years, all of this will be expired. So maybe that's a big issue. About the security or something like this. This is just another option to discuss. So I want to mention here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just to, I think that's an interesting suggestion. We should get some feedback on that one from the community as well. I know it's a pretty contentious discussion where there's clearly thoughts on both sides, and so we'd love to kind of get more of a sense from the community on where folks are landing. Another, just in general from a principle perspective, like where there are sectors that kind of are broken and we don't want to stick around on the network, like from a principle perspective, avoiding having those sectors stick around and having them move off the network as they expire is like the optimal. We have been like brainstorming about this, of like what might be able to be done, and something that we want to investigate and encourage the community to investigate is there a way that we could upgrade V1 sectors into V1.1 sectors, which would allow kind of holding onto the the committed capacity while avoiding having broken proofs on the network. And so like that seems like a compromise as well that might be a good fit for folks who are concerned about that expiry. And so like we haven't investigated this one yet, but I think that's another, just like from a principal perspective, if the goal is to help get these proofs kind of moving over to V1.1, that might be a thing to look into.
It seems more like a governance issue than anything, because I mean, personally, like from a technical standpoint, like I feel like just letting these sectors die is probably like the easiest thing to do. I feel like, you know, trying to convert the old proofs to the new proofs probably just requires a bunch of like resealing and recomputation of proofs anyways, which is pretty much the same thing as just sealing new sectors at that point. What I am curious to know though is like what percentage of these sectors are, you know, from the old proofs and are, you know, scheduled to kind of terminate. And so like that, to see like, you know, the impact on the storage power of the network and everything with respect to like the security and all that.
Yeah, so short answer, there's like everything before November 24th, I think, was sealed with the old proofs, and basically everything after was sealed with new proofs. And on November 24th, I think we had just passed 1 exabyte of storage. What I'm not sure off the top of my head is what percentage of that was 6-month sectors that'll be expiring, you know, somewhat soon, and what percentage was because I think basically everything that's not 6-month sector was a 1.5-year sector for the most part on mainnet, in which case it's expiring over in 2022. And I don't know what the breakdown of that is. I think the majority is definitely 1.5-year sectors, but yeah. I also agree with your first point. Like I do think this is yeah, from a technical point of view, there isn't that much to say because yeah, the sectors are vulnerable, but they're not like horribly broken. Like if it were like a showstopper, then there wouldn't be a conversation to have. So it is very much a decision in fairness more than anything else. I do agree that there's kind of like also just a bit of a bad, like, you know, it looks bad in code if you have like, you know, something that's like re-enabling bad sectors or something like that. But yeah, I think there's very much a decision on what is like the fairest thing for everyone here. It's not a great situation to be in. And whether, and yes, I kind of think like everyone kind of gets to weigh in, and then yeah, it's a governance decision that needs to be made. I think allowing the 6-month sectors to extend to the longest vulnerable sector lifetime and then allowing them all to die out is a reasonable thing. I think upgrading them would be great if we could somehow easily, because it doesn't have to be fully upgraded to 1.1. It could also just be like, you know, do something to confirm that the that people still have the full storage for these vulnerable sectors. So yeah, I think we just need to get as many opinions here as possible, and then
I'll just flag that it's probably, you know, Eric, to your point of like it's not really an implement or like a Lotus or Forest or Venus. Like that's not where the complexity is. The complexity is more on like the security aspect of things, because security things are all margins of error and like how rational is this versus something else. And so definitely like the V1 proofs, definitely we're not comfortable with that margin of error. Otherwise, if we were comfortable, we wouldn't have gone through the work of moving to V1.1 and making that sort of a change. And so definitely do not want those sectors like persisting on the network because they don't meet our security expectations.
Yeah. How about we have more data about the sectors which have only 180 days lifetime and yeah, some I believe more than half of those sectors are 1.5 year lifetime. So yeah, perhaps I have this proposal is because I think perhaps yeah, because I discussed with many miners and some of them actually they really have some sectors only have a half-year lifetime using network, because they want to have, maybe it's okay, just need them to, extend to 1.5 years, because most of the others will have 1.5 years, and if the security issue is there, there are many other sectors, really will be expired after 1.5 years. So that anyway, that is a trade-off, and it also allows them to have this kind of extension instead of to extend a few years. Maybe we can have more data, and I can do that actually, to have this data and to say if we can have a decision based on that.
Yeah, that would be super useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen. The other thing is kind of like, what is the right place to be discussing this? Like, I'm obviously, we can talk about it here, and I'm glad to get the input of people here. And there's lots of discussion in FIP issue 56. But I don't know what the right forum is, because we kind of want to get like as wide a range of opinions as possible. So that's something to figure out as well. Molly, I don't know if you have opinions.
Yeah, I mean, definitely normally conversations here are like about the technical implementation of things more than, so I think data we're surfacing here is like, what are some of the options that might be feasible, and what are the, bringing together the different implementations, and focus on like the protocol research side for the security considerations and stuff. Like, this is an opportunity to at least put information on the table, but when it comes from kind of actually trying to survey and understand, like, before we go forth and implement a FIP, we should have good understanding of the community being behind it. Otherwise, they're not going to accept a FIP upgrade, and we've done like wasted work. And so I think the continuing to have the conversation in places like the FIP repo, and aiming to pull that information from Slack. We've actually been working on a polling tool that would enable people to do signed voting. I don't know if it's quite ready yet, or if it'll be ready in time for this issue in particular, but I think that could also be a channel to get some more feedback from other forums, where again, we don't want to be having the contentious governance decision here. This is about implementation, but we want to make that more available to people in async channels, and then discuss outcomes from it in this sort of venue.
Yeah, and I was going to offer from the Filecoin Foundation side, I know there's a number of questions, like frequently asked questions that we've kind of gone back and forth in explaining, but we could add a section that covers a lot of these questions discussed and linked to the relevant GitHub issue threads where they have been answered, because it does provide a little bit more transparency on the how versus assumptions. And I know sometimes these calls might not be always the easiest place for some people to go back and listen to. So we can definitely pull that together from our side and put it in a very transparent way. Just the top questions that might be related to technical implementation.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds really good. Yeah, and Molly, that polling tool you described sounds great as well. Like, I feel like that's pretty much exactly what you want in a situation like this. But yeah, we'll see if we get it ready. Cool. Any other questions? Sorry, we're quite over time, but any other things that people wanted to raise?
Maybe Tiny Flag. I believe this meeting is going to be changing time sometime soonish, or at least just for people in other time zones. We're going to hit daylight savings time here in my time zone, at least, in like 2 weeks, which I believe means that not our next Core Devs Biweekly, but the one after, the one after that might change time for some people at some point. So I guess a question for us whether we want to keep it at 8 a.m. PT, which would make it, I believe, an hour earlier in China for Stephen, which might be preferable because I know these meetings are like midnight for you. And so that, I think, is a slight flag from a time zone perspective.
Yeah, good flag. I totally didn't think of that. Yeah, I think keeping it at the current time, so allowing it to move 1 hour forward for people that don't observe daylight savings is probably the best thing to do. Because I assume earlier is better for everyone that's not in North America. just because it's closer to the actual workday that way. Cool. All right, maybe let's call it there then. Thank you. Thanks for the long discussion. Lots of good stuff here, and good job on all the work. Keep the progress going.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.